Hello everyone, Fru here. Welcome to today's relevant read. So guys, in today's relevant read, we're going to be talking about resumes. And the question for today is, are you adding your soft skills to your resume? Are you adding your soft skills to your resume? Let's actually zoom into this particular read. So are you adding your soft skills to your resume? Guys, so I know a lot of you guys are reaching out to me. You're getting some training in IT. You've put together a resume and you've listed all the technical skills you know, right? You know how to program, you know Java, you know C Sharp, you know how to debug, and you know containers, serverless, and everything that you know. And you might be sending out the resumes and still struggling to land a job. And you know the question is, do you have some soft skills on your resume? And that's why I felt this was a relevant read to share, right? Do you have your soft skills on your resume? Now, before we dive into what this article provides and breaking it down, this relevant read, I'm gonna go into Google and just do a quick search, which I did already here, for soft skills. What exactly are soft skills, right? So according to the most credible source that we have on the internet, of course, which is Wikipedia, right? Tongue in cheek, it says soft skills are a cluster of productive personality traits that characterize one's relationships in the milieu, right? These skills can include social graces, communication abilities, language, personal habits, cognitive or emotional empathy, time management, teamwork, leadership trait, and more, right? So these are soft skills, right? As you can tell from this, this doesn't have anything to do with technology. It doesn't necessarily say, well, I know how to write Java, or I know how to write in Python, or I can analyze machine learning, or I know big data and Hadoop, right? Or I have a certification in AWS. It doesn't say any of those things, right? It's just more of your interpersonal communication, your interpersonal relationships, and things like that, right? This is soft skills. And to be honest, the reason why this article stood out to me particularly is because this is a conversation that a lot of people don't have, or this is something that a lot of people don't take into consideration when they are in the job market, or when they are sending out resumes, or when they, or frankly, when they're writing their resumes, right? They don't even think about soft skills, for example, or even if they do, it's an afterthought, right? And my take, and I'm hoping that this article, this read provides that, is soft skills should really be a primary consideration as you're writing your resumes. It cannot afford. It cannot be an afterthought, right? You cannot write your resume and then say, "Oh, do I have soft skills there?" You have to start with the soft skills in mind. Believe it or not, I know it's hard for technology people to believe this, right? Because all we care about is, oh, I know Python and I have a certification in Python, or AWS certification and this and that and that. But to be honest, and in my career, and in a lot of people that I've seen with very successful careers, people who inspire me and mentor me and things like that, the things that make them stand up is the soft skills, the work ethics, their ability to network, to connect, to form relationships, to communicate, right? And you know, if those things are important, then you definitely want them on your resumes if you're looking for a job. If you're looking for a job, you definitely want them on your resumes. So let's get started. It's again, this is it's a relevant read. As always, there's a lot of content. I'm gonna leave a link, so I wouldn't be reading every single thing on the screen. But my goal is just to highlight the points that are important. And of course, you can always go in and get the link from the description below to see the full article for yourself. Now, the first thing that it talks about is just the idea that you need to add the soft skills on your resume, right? And you don't need to make it fluffy. You don't need to, make it fluffy. And this is just basically what this is talking about, right? There are ways to add it on your resumes that actually makes you stand out. So when the HR people are reading, when they're reading your resume, they'll have some interest in wanting to talk to you more, right? And it says here 67% of HR managers said, they would hire a candidate with strong soft skills even if hard skills were lacking, right? And this just makes sense to me. People sometimes don't believe this. This is a high number. If 67% of HR managers say they will hire a candidate with strong soft skills, even if they were lacking in hard skills, why is everybody just focusing on the hard skills, right, and not talking about the soft skills? Why, right? So it's one of those things that just blows my mind away. So if soft skills are important, you definitely want to make sure that you have some good soft skills. Now, I'm not saying that forget the hard skills, never, right? Because if you don't know how to, do Python, or understand how to work in AWS, no amount of soft skills will help you on that, right? So you need to have hard skills. But what I always say is hard skills can bring you to the door. Soft skills will open the door for you. And right, and what most people struggle with is not coming to the door, is having the door open for them. Is having the door opened. So, and that's where the soft skills really comes into play, right? And so it's something really worth paying attention to. 67% of HR managers think it's important, and you cannot afford to not have it on your resume. So my hope is after this read, you will take some time, you will do a reevaluation of your resume, right? You go back and reevaluate your resume and look at it. Do you have some soft skills there? Do you have those soft skills on your resume, right? And do you have them correctly? So, all right. So let's dive down here. It talks about the top 10, and this is from ladders. The ladders talks about the top 10 soft skills to really consider about, right? And I'm gonna just read them really quick here without going into much details. I'm sure you can understand them. One is communication skills. You gotta be a good communicator, right? You can write all the best code, but if you cannot communicate verbally, non-verbally, it's really hard. It's really hard. I know IT folks sometimes think that, oh, I'm a geek, right? I don't need to be social. I don't need to communicate. But guess what? At the job, you're gonna have to communicate with your boss. You're gonna have to communicate with your clients, with your subordinates, with your peers, with the leadership, with the media, if you deal with that, and a whole lot of other people. With HR, you're gonna have to do a lot of communication, and communication doesn't just happen. Just you can't just wing it and say, well, I'm not good at communication, so all I need to do is write my code. That just does not work. Companies don't work that way. So you have to pay attention to that. And how can you convey to somebody that you have good communication skills? How can you do that? That's something you need to be thinking about, right? That's something you need to be thinking about. When you go to an interview, you're communicating. Right? You can't just say, well, I have my certification in AWS or in Azure, and so they should just look at my certification and give me the job without having a conversation with me, right? These are people you're going to be working with 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, or 4 weeks a month, or more even, right? So how can you work with people if you can't even have a simple conversation with them or communication with them? Same thing with interpersonal skills, right? How do you interact with other people? Are you sociable? Do people want to even be around you? Are you the type of person that once you walk into the room, everybody just wants to walk out, right? That's not a good position to be in. Again, you don't need to be the most likable, person in the universe. But can people even tolerate you as a benchmark? Just to even put the lowest benchmark, can people tolerate being around you, right? How easy it is for you to have interpersonal relationships. And the reason why I'm emphasizing this is because there is that notion, there is that perception that IT folks or technical folks or people who are quote unquote geeks should have nothing to do with interpersonal skills. That the more technical you are, you can have the most shitty personal skills and you can get away with it, right? Sure, you can maybe just survive, but not for the long term, right? Not really for the long term. And as a matter of fact, you will not even grow in your career if those skills are really bad. So something to take into consideration. Are you adaptable? Can you change? IT is always changing. Can you change to a new environment? Can you follow a different culture? Right? When challenges come, can you roll with them, or are you going to be rigid and never change and be stuck in your ways? Right? So very interesting. Problem solving, that's pretty self-evident, right? There'll be unexpected things happening in the company. The team is not going to get the resources that it needs, right? Somebody's going to quit on you, right? The boss is going to give you an assignment that you didn't expect, or that doesn't have all the details that you want. Can you handle that with grace and be able to get the job done like a true professional? So very important. Leadership skills, right? People always say, well, I'm not a leader, right? I'm just an individual contributor, so I don't need to have any leadership skills. If that's what you're thinking, I don't think that's a necessarily correct perception right? It's not necessarily correct, because leadership doesn't always have to be you having a bunch of people behind you and chanting and saying, I'm a leader, so follow me. No. Can you lead yourself? Are you self-motivated? That's leadership. It takes leadership to behave like a professional, right? And that's something that you can definitely work on, right? It takes leadership to communicate with your boss. There is this book, I can't remember the name, and I might have to leave it somewhere. If somebody is aware of it, leave it in the comment below, please. And it talks about leading up, leading down, leading sideways, right? You're leading up to your boss, you're leading down to people that, if they're below you, you're leading sideways to your peers. And so you don't need a title to say, well, he's a leader of the team, for you to actually be a leader. So that's just something to have at the back of the mind. Now, the next piece is organization. Are you organized? Can you put things together? Can you take a project from beginning to an end and keep track of your documentation? Adhere to deadlines. Communicate with people. Organization is key, right? Time management, of course, is just indispensable. Can you estimate when your project will be done and actually finish your project then as such, right? So it's not just about being productive and finishing things in the shortest amount of time possible. Not necessarily, right? Sometimes people want the results even if it takes an extra week than crappy work if it takes 3 days. So you just have to be cognizant of that and manage your time as well, right? Do you have the time management skills? How can you prove to an interviewer or in your resume that you have time management skills? Are you creative, right? Can you come up with novel ideas? When things don't go well, can you problem solve? Can you look at new directions? Can you think outside the box? These are things that companies want. That's why they pay big money. That's why they're paying big money for you. So if these skills are not something that you have, then it's definitely something that you want to think about. Now, emotional intelligence. There's emotional quotient, EQ or EI, right? This is becoming very popular these days in a lot of literature, and it's how much sensitive or how well you treat people. Are you sensitive to them? Are you emotionally intelligent? Do you care for people's emotion, or do you just bulldoze and brute through everything just to get what you want, regardless of how people feel or what people's feelings are, right? You can get through with that, but you're gonna make a lot of enemies sooner or later, to the point where if you're down, people will not come to help you. Or if a project is not going well, people don't want to help you, and that's not the position where you want to be in. So emotional intelligence is very important. There is a book about this. I highly recommend to find that book. I don't remember the name, but I think it's EQ 2.0 or something like that. But you can check it out. And then work ethics. Work ethics. This is just key. You cannot put a price on this, right? Are you the type of person that gets to work on time, gets what you need to get done, not be fooling around on company's time and doing your own side project, right? This is something very, very, very important. You cannot teach this. It's just like ethics, right? What are your ethical values? Would you want to take company's thing and bring home, even if it's not your own thing, right? These are things that you have to, decide for yourself. And how can you communicate that to your resume? So these are some of the top soft skills that it talks about. And it goes, I like how this article also goes. Let me zoom in here for a little bit so we can take a look. How to identify those soft skills, right? It says make a list of your top 3, call some friends, get feedback from friends. Friends can be honest, right? Sometimes we always think that we're God, right? If we judge ourselves, we always rate it A+ for everything. But your friends from an outside perspective can tell you things about yourself that might surprise you. So get feedback from them, right? So reach out to friends and get feedback from them. And so once you've identified those skills, right, also look at the jobs you're applying for. Some of the jobs will talk about some of the soft skills, like if they want creativity, they want problem solving and interpersonal communication, they will list it in there, right? So if you're applying for a job, just read through the description or similar types of description and see some of the soft skills that are written in there, so you can take that into consideration. And now once you have it, now is the time to insert it into your resume, right? So here it talks about the big mistake that we see in resumes is an errand list, people just listing things about the soft skills. But there's a better approach on how to insert that into your resume. So it talks about add soft skills to your cover letter, and I've made some videos about cover letters, right? And you can go ahead and read the details. I don't want to read it verbatim here, right? But the cover letter is a great place to to include your soft skills, and that's something that you definitely want to consider. All right, so let's go ahead. Add soft skills, your LinkedIn, your title, for example. It talks about a sentence or two about the kind of soft skills that you have. So there's a lot of opportunities to communicate your soft skills, basically. Within your resume, within your LinkedIn and your cover letter, within your LinkedIn or your cover letter. So there's a lot of opportunity to really go out and put your soft skills out there. And some people might say, but how do I show I'm a great communicator, right? During the interview process, how you're responding to your emails, how you're communicating with them, the timeliness of that, those are all indicating to the person that you have your soft skills, right? There's this belief that you can go and say, well, I'm a great communicator, but if there are errors on your resume, if you're not responding to emails on time, if you cannot articulate the value of why you should be hired, how can you claim to be a great communicator if you have an opportunity to communicate and you can't take advantage of it, right? So some of these soft skills are self-evident. You have to show it. It's not like saying I have a certification in communication, or I have a certification in good work ethics, right? As far as I know, there's no certification in that. You just have to show it. The proof is in the pudding, right? Can you tell a story, share a project that you actually led and played the leadership role, and people can buy into that? And so, guys, I don't want to make this any longer than it should be, but the point of this is just to call out the importance of soft skills. I think this is not a conversation that a lot of people are having. And as I interact with people reaching out for help on your resumes, trying to get a job, and for coaching, and just for my overall feedback, and the conversation almost always seems to boil down to things around technology and software and such, right? And I'm asking, what's your ultimate goal here? Is to get a job, right? But when I look at it, I say, what you've told me so far is not necessarily going to get you a job, because you're lacking a lot of other things that company wants, right? So assuming that to get a job is 100%, and you're coming to the table with 40% of the skills, and 60% is missing, and no one is talking about it, that is not a good position to be in, right? And that 60% are those soft skills, and people are not talking about it. And that's definitely something that you definitely want to pay attention to. You should be paying attention to, right? This article, again, I'll leave a link. I've done a great job of listing some of the 10 soft skills. Do a review of your resume, of your LinkedIn, of your cover letters. Are you articulating the soft skills that you want? And more importantly, are you demonstrating those with your actions? Not just talking. All talk is cheap, guys. Demonstrate them. Demonstrate your soft skills. And that's what begins to differ you from the crowd, right? If everybody comes in with an AWS certification and you need a job, or with a big data certification, and the hiring manager is to give a job to somebody, they will give a job to somebody that can communicate better, that can write better, that has better interpersonal skills, for good or for bad, right? They will give the job to that person. All right, so if you want the job, be ready to do the work. All right, guys, thanks for watching. As always, I'm going to leave a link to this article below, so definitely check it out. If you haven't, make sure you subscribe. We're going to be producing a lot more content like this, relevant read articles we find around the web that are interesting for us to read, to help our careers and to help our lives with. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.